everyone. My name is Autumn Ringel, and I'm the lead student ambassador here at Title IX. And I'm here today to give you a little presentation about Title IX 101. So let me just go ahead and get this screen pulled up for you so you can see the presentation. Here we go. All right, so Title IX 101, and this is for the student organization training. So a little bit of what we're going to cover today is just what is Title IX, what to report, how to report, and consent. So I'll go ahead and get right in. So what is Title IX? So first and foremost, the legal definition is no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So basically what that means is public institutions like Texas Tech are required by law to uphold Title IX. So that's why you're here. So what is the Office for Student Civil Rights and Sexual Misconduct? That's going to be our Title IX office. So basically, right here is just a list of everyone in the office who you can contact if you need anything. So the boss of the office is going to be Dr. Kimberly Simone. She is the Assistant Vice President for Compliance and Title IX. So if you ever need anything, you are always welcome to reach out directly to her, and you can see her phone number and her email here. And then we have our Associate Title IX Coordinator, Meredith Holden. Again, same thing. You're always more than welcome to reach out to her if you ever need anything. And then we have our Assistant Title IX Coordinator, Denise. And then our Training and Outreach Coordinator, Alex Ferris. And then we also have our investigators, which is going to be Greg, Andrea, and Glenn. And then also care coordinators. I'll get into a little bit about what they are in a little bit, but right now in the office, we do have Liam. And then the lead student ambassador, which is going to be me. So right here is going to be what our care coordinators are. And so it stands for Campus Advocacy Response and Education Coordinator, which is a bit of a mouthful, so care coordinators. And why do we have them? So they're just here to offer support, to make resources available if you need assistance after we've already closed your case or anything like that. You're always more than welcome to reach out to everyone in the office that's helped you previously, but our care coordinators are going to be kind of your front line of just getting help when you need it. So getting into consent. So the definition of consent under Texas Tech University is going to be mutually understandable words or actions actively communicated both knowingly and voluntarily that clearly conveys permission for a specific activity. So whenever we're talking about this, it's basically just making sure that everyone involved is clearly wanting to participate in whatever activity is taking place. So this can be most often we talk about this in a sexual context, but it doesn't always have to be. You need to get consent for everything that's happening. And then always remember that if you give consent for one thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you give consent for something else. So in an example, if you are giving consent to make out with someone, you're not necessarily giving them permission to also touch you. So you need to make sure you're giving and receiving consent for all of those things. So just a little bit more about consent. All of these factors right here need to be given and understood for the consent to be valid. So just a lot of words for everyone to look through, but just making sure that everyone is informed of what's happening and you're making sure that everyone wants to be there. So revocation of consent. You are always allowed to revoke your consent, no matter how far you've gone in the situation. You can always want to stop. It's your body, and whatever happens to it is entirely up to you. So one partner can always revoke their consent. The only thing is it needs to be clearly communicated, but it doesn't have to be a verbal no. Simply not wanting to participate, kind of retreating back into yourself, and maybe like moving away. Those are all reasons to believe that someone is revoking their consent, which is why check-ins are really, really important whenever you're participating in any kind of activities, just to make sure that everyone is still comfortable and on the same. So right here is going to be our reportable sexual misconduct areas. So those are going to be sexual assault, sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, stalking, dating violence, domestic violence, and public indecency. So within these, there's kind of a lot of terms and nuances. So I'll just go through each one and kind of explain what each one is. So sexual assault is going to be unwanted sexual contact or penetration. And sexual exploitation is one of those where we have a lot of definitions that go into it. A few of those are going to be prostitution, sex trafficking, voyeurism, and things like that. So, if someone is also distributing your sexual photos without your permission, that's going to be sexual exploitation. Selling them without your permission, that's exploiting you. One of them that we don't think about often is having unprotected sex whenever you only consented to protected sex. So say you're in a sexual situation and you consent to having sex with a condom, and then a partner removes the condom without your consent. That's also going to be falling under sexual exploitation and sexual assault. Sexual harassment can be comments, unwanted attention, like flirting, but it's not in a nice way. They're doing it and it's really demeaning comments, things like that, just harassing you whenever you're not wanting that attention. Stalking is going to be a situation where someone is maybe following you or is like giving you attention, showing up at your classes, maybe at your home, things like that. Our qualifications for that are going to be two separate instances. So it can be they're surveilling you, monitoring you, and you've asked them to please leave you alone. One example I like to give is like stalking on social media. So say someone is messaging you on Instagram and you say like, no, thank you. I don't like this. I'm maybe in a relationship. You don't have to have a reason for not wanting to talk to someone, but if you do offer a reason, something like that is maybe what you said, and they keep DMing you and don't leave you alone, so you block them. And after you've blocked them, they make a new account and they continue messaging you after you've already said that you don't want them contacting you. That's going to be considered stalking because there's those two separate instances of unwanted attention. So within dating violence, moving on to that, dating violence can be physical or emotional. A lot of times it can be someone that's controlling, maybe not letting you hang out with your friends, see your family. They're not letting you maybe have social media, something like that. And the qualifications there are it's just between partners in a romantic relationship. Then this could also go into physical violence as well, of course. So hitting you or restraining you, things of that nature. And then that kind of ties into domestic violence as well. So the only difference between dating and domestic violence is that dating violence is going to be between romantic partners, and domestic violence is going to be between people who live in the same dwelling. So domestic violence can be dating violence, but it's just domestic if you happen to live together. And then moving on to public indecency, that one's pretty self-explanatory, being indecent in public. And public indecency can very easily tie into other forms of these reportable misconduct areas. So someone can be indecent in public and also sexually harassing you, exposing themselves. That's going to be harassment. So public indecency can very easily tie into those other areas as well. So let's move on to these protected classes. So these are going to be your civil rights. Our office is the Office for Sexual Misconduct and Student Civil Rights. So sexual misconduct is going to be the Title IX, and these protected classes are going to fall under your civil rights. So this can be discrimination based on your national origin, protected veteran status, pregnancy and childbirth, race, age, disability, and religion. So these ones right here, these aren't required to be reported, but it's very recommended for you to do that. So within Title IX, something that is a little bit confusing for some people is that we offer assistance for pregnancy and childbirth as well. With that, there are a lot of accommodations that we can also give. So things like you're missing class for a doctor's appointment, you missed an exam, you can no longer fit in the desk, and so you need a new one, things of that nature. We also have access to nursing mother rooms. So if you need to pump during the day, we can get you access to that room. So that's something a little bit there that people aren't normally aware of. But with these other things, these are mostly self-explanatory. If you're experiencing discrimination based on one of these things, one of these listed here, you can reach out to our office and we can help remedy that situation. So what does our office do? We first will provide supportive measures. We can investigate reports of misconduct, and we'll also facilitate those resolutions if we do go through with a full investigation. So in these supportive measures, this is just a list of kind of more of our most common ones. So we can get you access to those counseling services, medical services, housing assistance. So if you no longer want to live in the residence hall that you live in and you don't feel safe there, we can help you move to a different one. Academic support. You think about, if you've gone through something that's reportable to Title IX and you have a big exam the next day, you're probably not going to be at your best. So we can reach out to your professor and have them facilitate a retake for you or schedule a different time for it. Parking assistance. That's pretty common with incidences of stalking. So if someone is repeatedly following you to your car and your car is really far away from your classes, we can help move you a little bit closer. And extracurricular and student org assistance, that one's going to be a little bit more pertaining to y'all in this training, because if you're missing for any reason and you're having to take a leave of absence, we can make sure that you are coming back at the same status that you were at before you left. And then also altering student employment schedules. So if there's a specific time that you can't or don't want to work, we can help with altering those. So these are the mandated reporter requirements, just so y'all are aware of this. So who is a mandated reporter? It's going to be anyone that's employed by the university other than those confidential employees. So that's going to be student health services and student counseling services, but everyone else that's employed by the university is going to be a mandated reporter. So whenever you are a mandated reporter and you are required to file a report, that is going to be when you witness something or you receive information from someone discloses to you, and you are on the job or acting in the scope of your position. So if you're fully off duty on a Saturday and someone tells you something, you're not in your role as an employee, so that's not going to be required. And then failure to report is going to be mandatory, is going to result in mandatory termination. So there is also a criminal penalty that can come along with that. So we're making sure that everyone is filing whenever they get this information, because if we find out that you didn't, we don't have any choice but to terminate you. So failure to report promptly. We use the word promptly because we don't want to give a certain time frame, because if we set it at 24 hours after someone discloses to you, if you file on that 25th hour, that still falls under failure to report because you didn't do it within that time frame. So we use the word promptly just to kind of say, as soon as you're able to, if you're dealing with a situation, we don't want you to have to be like, hey, stop, I need to file a report. We want you to be able to handle the situation and then get us all the information necessary. So these are going to be the mandated reporter requirements. I kind of went over this just a little bit, but here's just a little bit more in depth of everything. So, just making sure that you're giving us all the information that you have, and you're also reporting regardless of when or where the incident occurred. So if someone discloses a sexual assault that happened 7 years ago, you're still going to file a report about that because we're still able to offer them those support resources. And if someone is talking about an event that happened years ago, that may mean that they haven't been given that support and they haven't resolved that issue yet, or they haven't been able to get counseling services and they're not aware of how to do that. So by giving us that information, we're able to reach out to them to see if they need any support. So moving on, this is going to be a little bit more on pregnancy and parenting. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but again, just going through, we can do those excused absences because of childbirth, and we can also do it for the student that is pregnant, as well as any partners or someone else, because, you know, if your girlfriend is going into labor and you have an exam, the birth of your child is going to be more important than an exam in that moment. So we're able to make sure that you're getting excused as well. And then we treat it as a medical leave if the student is leaving, so we can make sure that they're returning to the same academic and extracurricular status as before. And then we also have, and then you are not required to report if you know someone that's pregnant. We don't keep a long running list of everyone on campus that's pregnant. That's a little bit weird. So we're just here to offer that support if that's something that you need. If you do need those accommodations, we're always here in the office to help. So employee reporting exemptions. So if you are the victim of any of the things that are required reporting, so that sexual harassment, assault, dating violence, domestic violence, stalking, you are not required to report your own incident. We would love for you to be able to report that to us so we can offer you that same assistance, but you are not going to be penalized for not reporting an incident that happened to you personally. And then also, whenever we're having public awareness events, such as Take Back the Night, those are times where people are talking publicly, and we're not going to file a report about everything that everyone is saying. And then also those confidential employees that I mentioned earlier, whenever they are acting in their scope of duty. So those student health services employees and the student counseling service employees are not going to be required to report. Whenever you're filing a report, this is just kind of a walkthrough of what is going to happen. So first, the Title IX case management team is going to review the report. They're going to take in that report and they're going to read through it, and they're going to send the student an email with all of the supportive measures that we can offer. And then if the student then decides that they would like to file a formal complaint, we're going to go into the formal grievance process. That means that our investigators are going to get involved. We're going to have a full investigation. And then one of two things can come from that. We're either going to have an informal resolution where the two parties are going to come together and they are going to agree on a resolution. A lot of times that's going to result in a no contact order, so neither party is allowed to contact the other person. Or if we cannot do an informal resolution, then we're going to go into a hearing where we will have a panel that will listen to both sides and discuss if the respondent, so the person that the report was filed about, if they are going to be found responsible or not, and then we'll be able to take disciplinary action from there if you are found responsible. So what to do if someone discloses to you. So being a friend, you're going to make sure that you're listening to them. You're making sure that they feel safe. If someone is disclosing to you, it's because they feel like you are a safe person to go to. So making sure you're listening, be empathetic, be genuine, and truly listen to them. And then afterwards, connecting them with support. So if you're not a mandated reporter, you're not required to report to us, but we always recommend it so we can help offer them support as well. But if you're not a mandated reporter, getting them in contact with the student counseling services, things like that. But again, we highly recommend that you file that report with Title IX anyway, so we can help with any other accommodations that need to be met that other places and departments on campus aren't able to provide. So things to avoid when someone discloses. If you're a mandated reporter, don't interrupt them to tell them that you're a mandated reporter, and don't ask questions or details that are too intrusive. Don't try to investigate. We have our investigators here that are going to do that. Don't make them feel like they have to do something. So don't tell them they have to file a report, that they have to go to counseling. You don't want to make anyone feel like they don't have autonomy over what they do after they've been experienced something that's Title IX reportable. Don't make them feel guilty. Don't promise either that the university is going to take specific action. And then don't call the police unless the student is requesting it or there's an active emergency. If someone is saying that they are going to commit suicide, that's a very serious thing. And if you are genuinely concerned that that's going to happen, then you can go ahead and call 911. But if this person is in a safe environment, they're as okay as they can be, things aren't really escalating, there's no reason to involve the police. You can come straight to us, and then we can also help facilitate contacting the police if that's something that the student decides that they want at a later date. Common reporting concerns, just to cover this, we are not going to investigate without the complainant, so the person filing the report or the person that experienced the event. We are not going to do anything without their consent. So we're not going to investigate. We're not going to notify the respondent, so the accused. We are not going to notify anyone without the permission of the complainant. One thing that's very, very important here in our office is going to be that confidentiality. And so we're never going to do anything without your consent. And we're not going to notify the police unless the student is requesting it. And we're also not going to share any information with a parent or guardian. Even if that FERPA has been signed, there's an additional layer that the student is going to need to sign before we can talk to anyone else about any events that have occurred or what they're talking to our office about. So, how to report an incident. So, like I mentioned earlier, we do have Dr. Kimberly Simone, who is going to be the Assistant Vice President for Compliance in Title IX. So you can report directly to her, you can call her, you can send her an email. You can also come right into the office and request to talk to someone. You can go online to title9.ttu.edu, and we have a big red button that says file a report. And then if you ever have any questions, you can always call us. Our phone number is going to be right here. So any questions can come here. And then just a list of the confidential assistance. So if you're not wanting that report to be filed yet, that's going to be a list of places that aren't going to file on your behalf. And then law enforcement. So the TTU Police Department, and then also Lubbock Police Department if you're wanting to get law enforcement involved. So moving on, again, this is just about the Title IX coordinator, Kimberly Simone, all of her information if you're wanting to reach out to her. And then the Texas Tech University System Title IX coordinator for employees is going to be Dawn Payne. So if you're an employee and you need something, you can reach out to her. And then we also have our Clery compliance officer, Claire. There is her phone number and her email if you're needing any assistance there or you have any questions. Okay, so retaliation is something that I want to touch on really quick. That is just going to be if you file a report about possibly a professor, a TA, someone that holds power over you, and they are maybe sexually harassing you, stalking you, things like that, and you file a report, we protect you from them retaliating against you. So they cannot fail you, they cannot do anything like that that is going to cause you any more harm. We're going to make sure to protect you and your grades, or whatever you're worried about is not going to be negatively impacted by a report being filed. Okay, and this QR code right here, if you want to go ahead and scan this, it's going to pull up our support resources. It's just lots of different contacts on campus where you can get information, and all the phone numbers and everything is going to be all in one place. So you just scan this QR code, type in your TTU email. It's going to pull up the contact, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you will click add to contacts or create new contacts, and then you will click save, and everything will be there in your contacts for you if you ever need anything. And then just really quick, if you're ever experiencing anything that is not falling under Title IX, but you're still wanting to get assistance, that's when you can utilize the Students of Concern report with the Dean of Students. This is an exhaustive list of things that they cover, but I just want to touch on if you're filing on someone's behalf and a student is in distress. I know that that falls under a Dean of Students, but If they're in distress because they were sexually assaulted, that's going to be Title IX. Or if they are having suicidal ideation because they were sexually assaulted, still Title IX. Anything that is even remotely related to Title IX, come to us first, because if you're filing students of concern, that's another group of people who've seen that report that don't need to, if it's ultimately going to be referred to Title IX anyway. So if you're ever concerned, always report to Title IX first. But if you're 100% certain there's nothing to do with Title IX, go ahead and utilize that students of concern report. So just a couple on-campus resources for you. Feel free to take a picture, take a screenshot of this. This is just different offices that can help you out. We have that crisis hotline that's on the back of your student ID that's open 24/7, 365, and you are always more than welcome to call them. We have our counseling services, health services, disability services, lots of things going on. I do want to point out the free condoms that RISE provides. They are in different places all over campus, so Drain 24/7, or in the sub on the second floor. So that's going to be over by the LGBTQIA office, things like that. We also have them in the rec at Fitwell. So lots of different places that you can get those free condoms. And then also those free menstrual products that are going to be at Drain 24/7, and that's going to be provided by the RISE office. Okay, and then again, just a few community resources. So the police department, the different emergency rooms, and Voice of Hope, which is going to be our rape crisis center. They're completely confidential, so you can reach out to any of these places and get assistance as well. And then just some national resources. So if you were in need of assistance that's maybe even bigger than what you feel like the community can handle, you're always more than welcome to reach out to these hotlines. Lots of different hotlines if you ever need assistance, you're not sure where to go. But again, you can always reach out to us if you have any questions about this. And that's everything I have for y'all today. So thank you so much for watching, and always reach out if you need assistance. Please call our office, swing by. We're on the second floor of the sub in room 232. We're right across from the bathroom. So let us know if you ever need anything, and thanks for watching.